Today we talk about infrastructure. I see you already grabbing for your phone and wanting to go to the next podcast episode. No, stop it. The thing with infrastructure is a thing that you don't think about infrastructure as long as it works. And you need for AI, you need infrastructure, you need data centers mostly. And without them, your AI simply wouldn't work. Yeah, and today we talked to Lisa Weaver-Lambert. She was on the podcast already, but now talks about infrastructure, especially digital infrastructure. She's author, consultant, and AI and infrastructure specialist, and I'm happy to have her in the podcast. Let's just give her the microphone. But before, don't forget to go to argoberlin.com/newsletter and subscribe. You get all the podcast episodes in your mailbox. Also, some nice stuff we have there. Let's just start with the episode. It's Dietmar from Argo Berlin on the microphone, and now give the microphone to Lisa. So, Lisa, it's great to have you back on the podcast. You're actually the first guest who returns to the podcast, but still, I think not everybody listened to your episode. You should, people. It's a great one. But so, please, could you introduce yourself a little to us?
Yeah, well, firstly, it's my pleasure to be with you again. I'm originally from Oxford in the UK, and I've lived and worked across Europe, the US, and Asia, and I cut my teeth in financial services, doing a lot of work on data quality and governance at that time, and it was a great discipline to learn. I moved to the US early in my career and was lucky enough to experience the value of large data sets and how you use analytics to solve real world problems. My professional experience has been developed in enterprise technology companies. I've worked for Microsoft, Accenture, and in private equity, and as late in infrastructure as well, which is the topic for us to discuss.
Infrastructure. This is don't turn off now. It's really interesting, and at least for the Europeans, or especially for the Germans, we have a huge. I don't know. We pay about 500 billion now for infrastructure, and part of it's digital. So it's really interesting. So what's it about infrastructure and digital and AI and special?
Well, let's just start by describing what the infrastructure industry is. So it is a significant and growing global market. And as of June last year, the global private infrastructure AUM, so that's assets under management, reached an all-time high of $1.3 trillion. So this represents more than a fourfold increase over the past 10 years. So what has been driving this is energy transition. So the global push towards decarbonization, a primary driver of infrastructure investment, particularly in renewables. Then the second category is obviously digital infrastructure. So this is data centers, cloud computing, AI related investments, and we'll come back to these areas. And then also government spending, so initiatives to improve infrastructure and stimulate economic growth, which are also contributing to the overall investment. So just sort of double clicking on the data center market. So this alone saw 22 billion invested in the first 5 months of 2024 alone. And Europe, where we are, both are in particular, has experienced a remarkable surge in activity. Its share of the global investment has climbed dramatically from 6% in 2022 to 20% in 2023. And now it's around sort of 30% share. And this shift sort of underscores Europe's growing prominence in the data center landscape, and listening to large investors like Blackstone, they're also very positive about the growth in Asia, particularly in India. So it's fair to say that investors are bullish on this generational opportunity to invest in what we would call the intersection of data centers and power. And the capex needs are huge in this sector, which is actually where AI has a role to play. So it's not to say that this isn't a sector without risk, and it certainly has its risks, but investors see this as actually building the equivalent to a warehouse with access to significant power and air conditioning. And they're contracting out these centers for 15 to 20 years. The big sort of question for investors now is acquisition premium, and everybody is really piling into this sector these days. There are generalists, there are specialists, and that puts pressure on valuations and driving value. So the value from these assets requires the ability to sort of pair real estate knowledge, application of AI in real estate. And I've worked with GLP in that area. And then also knowledge of power markets as well.
Yes, it combines things. It's interesting, and I just talked to my programmer, and he was kind of fitting a graphics card into his computer, and he needed 3 power plugs, two alone for this big graphics card. It's like so. This is like, and now you have a data center, and that's like thousands, 10,000s of those chips there. Wow.
Well, it's interesting that you pick up on the tooling, because in fact last week I was in an infrastructure conference and there was a researcher there, and she was saying that the let's say that the tooling and solutions they're putting into these data centers actually gets outdated within 3 years. So things are changing super fast, and I think we have to sort of understand who are the customers of these data centers, and they're really the big tech companies like Amazon AWS, or Microsoft Azure, or the Google Cloud Platform, and then obviously Meta, Facebook, and Oracle as well. And these companies require massive data center capability to support their global operations, cloud infrastructure services, and now AI deployment. And they often build their own hyperscale facilities, but also lease space from co-location providers, which are these investors that we were referring to. So it's really the overall digitization of businesses and society as a whole that is building up this investment, that is driving the investment in the data center infrastructure, and alongside as well the rollout of 5G networks. And we mustn't forget that, and the Internet of Things, the IoT, that is driving demand for edge data centers to support low latency applications. So look, the fundamental point here is that these investors are seeking to deliver returns from these data centers as well to their investors, so LPs. And active portfolio management has now become very important. And to maximize returns in digital infrastructure investments, you really need a comprehensive strategy. And this includes not only a clear profitability pathways and robust EBITDA improvements and financial discipline, but it also includes optimized working capital and strategic capital allocation as well. So this also, directly points to EBITDA, and AI-driven insights are critical to, or AI integration is critical to achieving these objectives. And AI-powered analytics can really help refine some of the capital allocation and provide data-backed narrative that bolsters the equity story for these investors. But one of the key reasons to consider AI solutions is really their impact on margin expansion, so operational efficiency. And the operators of these data centers are now leveraging AI across the lifecycle management to optimize deployment strategies. For example, Schneider Electric is actually using AI and a data lake of anonymized customer data to analyze critical factors such as battery life, longevity in relation to temperature, and the overall operational temperatures. And this allows them to maximize uptime and efficiency. So really efficiency is the name of the game here, but AI is also increasingly important for future planning. So hyperscale developers that we talked about are allocating significant portions of their data centers to various uses. So one of them is allocating 30% of their new 150 megawatt data center specifically for AI-driven asset monitoring. And they've put in place a 5-year program to analyze AI's optimization strategies and asset performance data. And this helps them meet the growing demand for data processing and storing. And it's not just about monitoring, but also, obviously, we know that, they are these hyperscalers are integrating AI into their software solutions as well to drive profitability. And it's being also, that technique is being introduced into engineering design cycles. So to prevent clashes during the integration of complex systems like piping and electrical wiring, it's also being used to optimize performance of equipment and energy consumption. And we're seeing the rise of open platforms that actually allows customers to integrate their AI engines and maximize the value that they extract from equipment data as well.
This is so for all the people out there. I don't know much about infrastructure either. It's like this is the thing you use, but you don't know much about. This is there's this saying about magic. If highly developed technology is for the people like magic. So if you would put me somewhere and say, okay, you used it, can you fix it? Can you do something? I don't know how to do something there. So one of the questions is, and might be a silly question, but are there different types of data centers? Because you said there's some for like more like predictive, or is it basically the same? Is this does it work for every?
Well, there are different. So there's a difference between digital infrastructure, which we're talking about. So data centers are part of digital infrastructure, and then you've got other parts of digital infrastructure. So you've got certain parts that are powering cloud, you've got certain parts that are powering sort of AI development, you've got telcos, etc. So you've got different uses, you've got different scales of these centers as well. So the data centers are the high growth area of digital infrastructure where really the demand is driven from AI. You've got different customers, different sizes. They're in different regions, but there is a there is a common usage of them and the types of customers that are coming in. But the types of customers are largely categorized by these large scale technology companies that sort of sweep up sort of 60% of the demand. Then you've got governments, you've got co-location plays where you've got different companies coming in to rent space as well. Within those, you've got telco coming in, so the different customers there. And I think the interesting part is the contracting part. So they will contract these data centers out for 15 to 20 years. So that's a long-term commitment. And sort of one of the key points that comes up as well for these investments into data centers is sustainability, because they demand a lot of heat and they demand a lot of cooling, and there's considerable pressure on energy generation and then also cooling as well. But here AI has a role to play as well. So some organizations are modeling their operational energy demand at the design stage, thinking about customer equipment usage. They're using constant and meteorological data for the locations, annual temperature variations, and this helps them calculate accurate estimations of operational costs and cooling solutions. So we're seeing strategies as well, like raising rack inlet temperatures, which allows for reducing cooling requirements as well. So that there is a lot of work going on in thinking about how to make these data centers more sustainable. And I think also we shouldn't forget the use as well of digital twin technology in the design stage. So this allows the builders of these centers to really simulate the grid and infrastructure changes in a virtual environment, and it enables businesses to sort of test scenarios, such as integrating solar power or battery storage, and analyze the impact on load balancing and potential issues like short circuits. So it provides more confidence in the ROI of digital investments for the investors, as they can be modeled and validated before physical implementation.
This it's you were at this conference, and the thing is, what you talk about, it sounds like infrastructure. If you ask me about infrastructure, I think of streets, trains, those things, maybe power lines, power grid, and so. How much of the conference was about AI, virtual simulations, all those things?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I definitely think there was a strong undertone of the impact of AI on this area, and I think the way that investors are thinking about it is in two ways. So first of all, you're right, there are different asset classes in the infrastructure, and transport is also a big area, and it's not going away. So and also sustainability, and they're thinking about how to drive sustainability. So but there was a whole day dedicated to digital infrastructure as a category. Um, and the I think there is a undercurrent of, how much digital infrastructure do we need, and what was the impact of the Chinese AI model release and its reduced impact versus Sam Altman's investment in that he wants to do in data centers in the US. So there is a debate there. But I think it's also being considered within what they would call asset management, so value creation. And I think the sort of the more forward-thinking investors who also have some PE background as well, who understand the value plays within PE, are thinking and actually doing rather applications of AI to optimize not only their investment processes internally, and that's certainly what I worked with GLT on, in terms of how they optimize their investment life cycle using AI, but then also in the assets. So they need to, this is getting more of a competitive space. So when it gets more competitive, the premiums go up, as we discussed, and then the efficiencies um, need to be optimized as well to achieve a stronger EBITDA and profitability.
This totally makes sense, but competition is basically good. But one thing that is so funny, I have to talk about this with you, is so you build centers for deploying AI, and you use AI to build them. So AI comes in on both comes in and comes out.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So AI has a significant role to play in optimizing how these centers are designed, how energy is used and optimized. Um, they are AI can be used for looking at, exits as well. What's the potential on the exit? So yes, it can be deployed in um, managing the assets, as well as serving AI research, which it is currently fueling.
Yeah. No, I assume they don't use ChatGPT, but they are like longer in the game. It's not that they just discovered. It doesn't sound like they use probably AI for planning for longer than November 22 or something.
Yeah, so I think I think there's slight skepticism on the deployment of generative AI in the sector. But certainly that is very important to deploy within the firm itself. You know, looking at past investments, similar to the private equity use case as well. So optimizing, because you can deploy both traditional AI and generative AI together to solve some of these problems that they're facing together. And I think it's in that combination where they're seeing most value, and also service. Don't forget, service is also an area of these data centers. And that is a use case we know for generative AI, but it's really looking at what's the best solution to our problem.
Yeah, so it's like this is totally like in a highly technical area. This is really extreme. One doesn't think about this. It's like, yeah, infrastructure conference. When you told me you are on an infrastructure conference, I really thought about something boring. Okay, the suits of the people were all really dark and gray. They don't look like marketing guys, but it's still.
No, the background of a lot of people is from engineering, actually, and engineering and finance. And these are considerable deployments of capital they are making. And I think look, the biggest call that we had um, before the US election actually was by Sam Altman for Stargate, which is a project that he's launched for OpenAI, and that he's doing with SoftBank and the Sovereign Wealth Fund to build a 500 billion AI infrastructure in the US. So, we're talking about significant deployments of capital. So, I mean, that's the largest AI infrastructure project in history by far. But I think strategically the investors are looking at how they balance their portfolios as well. You mentioned the other asset classes, and I think in the other asset classes, AI is also very applicable. So the way that I have categorized deploying AI and driving value in infrastructure investments is through 6 lenses. So I think about customer and brand, insight, scalability and adaptability, improved reliability and performance, operational efficiency, and risk management. And I map these areas, and these areas relate to, for example, build forecasting, asset monitoring, cooling, IT support efficiency, predictive maintenance, that's a big one, or AI powered workload placement. Um, Grid optimization, but all of these areas you can easily map onto areas that are going to benefit the investors themselves. So the people that you were referring to in dark suits, so they're interested in capex, opex, and IRR, so internal rate of return. So you can easily start driving value cases with AI that are going to benefit the investors.
It kind of makes sense. The single most educational people on the podcast I interviewed had was electrical engineers. So the engineers are really strong in AI. It makes sense. It's like not the IT people like I expected, but it's more like the engineers. And then they on the conference and using AI totally makes sense. But I want to jump back to the DeepSeek effect, because that you said there was a discussion. There's no result yet, I guess, but is there a tendency? So meaning if you use DeepSeek and you need much less infrastructure, meaning data centers, um, but people use more AI. So
Yeah, I Yes, that was the response, I think, in a tweet from Satya Nadella post the announcement. Uh, uh, the I think people within technology were not taken by surprise because people knew about the growth of this particular firm. And it wasn't actually, it was the one that caught the headlines, but it wasn't the only launch from China at that time as well. And it is predicted that these models will get more efficient. And so the demand for power to continue with the research into AI, we don't see that as going south, or but it's not going to be a straight right curve. Infra is my response to that. I think on the other hand, the investor community was rather taken by surprise because they're looking at macro trends. I think they're looking at much longer term investments, and eyes were on the US in terms of launches of new models. And so the fact that and it are all the claims from that model verified? I haven't seen that verified either, but there's definitely a more efficient use of energy and power by that model. But I think, interestingly, if I think about the models that are getting built, so the application of the models of the large scalers um, into solutions that are being developed they're actually being developed into smaller models and more localized. I think we will see a trend of the use of local data centers. I know that you mentioned to me that they're building out in Germany. I think they're building out in the Nordics as well. They're definitely building out in the UK. So I think we'll see smaller, more localized models being built that are more efficient, but are still dependent on these larger foundational models.
Yeah. No, this is the idea is how to have it in your phone. And I mean, if it's cloud, you still have to use data centers, but the better and better they become those models, the more you can do directly on your phone or in your computer. And that's actually kind of the location. You said localization. Is this a big trend? Is it like big is beautiful, or is localization the new one?
I think, we're seeing our local governments invest into data centers. We're certainly seeing that trend, and significant sums were announced in the UK. But I don't think it is slowing down the larger builds either. So I think you've got two parallel sort of strategies at the moment.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So both happen and both are necessary. How's
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the investors are now asking you, I mean, there always is the question, are we overbuilding capacity? So there's been a lot of heat that has followed digital infrastructure investments, but there's a balancing out of their portfolio as well that they take very seriously.
Makes sense. Yeah. You don't know exactly where it goes, and both might be good, but one doesn't know. And there's the thing, is it like even like let's say, I don't know, this is a term, hyperlocalization. So are there data center for firms? So I have my firm, I have my 10,000 people or 1,000 people working here. Do I need a data center?
Well, that's a good question. Um, I don't know is the answer to that. So your AI firm, as you will be in the future, most certainly you will be serviced from a data center, um, or an intermediary. But I don't know. It's a very interesting question.
Mhm. if at least from the government perspective, you need to have it yourself because you need control.
Well, I think as well the push, at least in Europe, on security. So all the security infrastructure depends on data centers as well. That has ignited investments across Europe.
Yeah, makes sense. It's like and also, I mean, probably not just Europe. If you take India, China, or other countries, they probably are in the same boat.
Yes, most likely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is and there's a question about localization also. Like it might be a stupid question because I always think they generate a lot of heat. Don't we need to build them in the north? So where's
Well, there was a very interesting talker at the conference actually who was representing investments in Norway, and there is significant investment in data centers in Northern Europe, but they are actually using the excess energy. So this is part of now, the thinking is how do we use the excess energy, and they are growing tomatoes with this excess energy. But I think this is quite anecdotal. I think you'll see within all the reports from all the hyperscalers that their emissions have gone up and not down with investments into AI as a byproduct, and this is in turn linked to power that is needed, to support the AI research and development. So I don't know. I don't think it's as binary as we need to build in the north. You need space for these data centers as well. But the role that AI itself and the solutions that one can deploy to estimating, heating and cooling, etc., it's very, very important moving forward.
I think that's because that's basically costs, and then what you have to what should you do with the heat, and can you use it, or where can you produce the energy? And actually, that's another of the topics. Power
Yeah,
plants.
the water consumption as well shouldn't be
Yeah.
overlooked. And where are you going to get the water from? Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is a serious impact on the environment there. And I don't mean it from an environmental perspective, but if you use up a lot of water, you have to have the water, and you don't have to. If you take it away from someone or from the nature, you have to do something
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
So you're highlighting complex decision making where AI can definitely support, and that is really important.
Oh yeah, this is planning processes.
Yes.
One of the problems we have as humans is to keep so many balls in the air and seeing what's important. Yeah.
Yeah, and these are not short-term investments, as we spoke about earlier.
Oh yeah, and then you have to also to see what's in 20 years in that region, in that country, like climate change, political. Oh wow, that's
Yeah, but I think some of that is, very, very challenging. But it's thinking about how do you build in a modular way, as we do in technology. So what components are going to remain constant, and this is where investors that have both real estate and power expertise coming together are doing really, really well.
I think you mentioned something of lack of people who can do that actually. Is there something, is a problem there? Where's actually the biggest problem of putting the data center somewhere? Where the planning process, the people building it, where
Well, I think I mean, each stage has its complexities. So the right governance in decision making is really critical. So who owns the data center? Who's building it? Who's funding it? Who's leasing it? And then what equipment do you need in there? How long are you going to invest in that equipment? What's the customer attraction on it? These are all very challenging decisions. So you've got players like Blackstone or Digital Bridge, KKR, etc. So very large investors that are um, shouldering in to this sector because they've got the capability.
Yeah, that makes sense. Infrastructure is always a big thing. It's a big thing in the sense of it's not. I mean, the other side, you have an AI firm. Theories are you just don't need any workers anymore, so you're just one person with AI. Infrastructure still you need, and you have to get it, and that's quite the opposite, I guess.
Yeah, but I think it's that multidisciplinary skill set that is at play. Because essentially, the real estate team would say, well, these are real estate investments, and the power team would say, well, no, they're power investments. But it is the intersection of skills and then the inclusion of technology specialists who understand the needs of the market, but also the engineers for understanding, what do we actually need in those data centers? What do we need to provision now? How long do we invest into X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, and then if you think about after 3 years, you have to renew everything because it's outdated. That's wow, it's quite a
Yeah,
topic.
I'm not sure. I think the 3-year renew everything was for perhaps a point to get people thinking. But I think there are components within the operations of a data center that will need renewing on a much shorter time horizon than typical infrastructure investments, and that requires careful calculation.
Yeah. No, just with a small example I have from my IT guy. He tried with the graphics card, and actually it was an AI specialized card from I think even an NVIDIA from 2019, 20, and the new ones is so much faster because it's programmed for the process, and so if it's 5 years old, it's you can't really use it anymore. That is crazy. So innovation cycles there, at least for the whole IT infrastructure is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is important for people to understand your listeners to understand the value chain from the data center to the value impact within a particular firm, because this is an area of continued very high investment at the front end of the value chain.
Nobody likes that, I think. So, Lisa, it was great talking to you. I don't know. Do you want to have a last, if I'm missing the term, like a summary of what you said?
Well, I think that the infrastructure area has very different asset classes in it, and managing assets to deliver future value is critical, and AI plays a huge part in that, both from a margin improvement, but also from a security, sustainability, and innovation role. And it's really important to think about the 6 areas that we talked about. So customer insights, scalability, performance, operational efficiency, and risk management, and the different areas where AI can provide real value to the operators of any infrastructure asset. And then more specifically, we're talking about digital infrastructure and then data centers within that category, and thinking about which data centers are actually playing a role in servicing your needs, and how is that going to shift moving forward, and thinking about the costs of the value chain and how to optimize that to your advantage, but more importantly, to think about the applications of AI to make these investments, more efficient, because that will bring the overall cost down.
the efficiency, the costs. We have to deal with that because we all use AI more and more. One last thing, Lisa, where can we find you? Where should we connect to you?
LinkedIn is the best place to
LinkedIn.
find me. Yeah.
Okay, then I put a link in the show notes and you can connect
Yeah.
to Lisa. And yeah, great.
And I should add that I did an interview, quite an in-depth interview with Miao Song, who's from GLP, which is an infrastructure firm. It invests in real estate. It's recently been acquired. It's a great firm. Straight out of the gates, the CEO was very determined to drive the firm's future with AI. And so there was a very strong effort to do two things. So modernize the data estate globally, and also to focus on specific use cases that were very important to investors to drive future value for the firm. And so you can find that detailed interview in my book, The AI Value Playbook. That's
great.
available on Amazon.
Then we put also a link to the book, which is a great book actually. And yes, this is you can read about that. And infrastructure, people, who would have thought it's that interesting? Everybody knows it's important. So Lisa, thank you for the insights on this, and hope to have you back on the show soon with let's see what comes in infrastructure. 1 year and in AI is nothing, so we'll see. Thank you.
Well, thanks for your time.
See, I told you, it's a deep topic. Infrastructure, never thought about infrastructure before, at least not that much. And it's really, really important, all the stuff that's happening there. If you want to use AI, you need infrastructure. That's the basic thing. And the industry, quite interesting, using a lot of AI to build AI infrastructure. I love it. It's really the way to go. So if you don't know where to work in the future, infrastructure might be a thing. I don't know. Yeah, for me, not, but I'm a podcaster. What should I say? That's purely digital, and I'm a digital marketer, also purely digital. Yeah, I use this stuff. That's the good thing. So don't forget to go to Lisa's book and look at it. That's it for now. Yeah, also don't forget to go to the newsletter, argoberlin.com/newsletter, and follow the podcast on your podcasting app. See you next time. Signing off, Dietmar from argo.berlin.